Hello and welcome back to the Scenario 7 podcast. My name is Sam, and in a week that saw Sergio Perez tell Red Bull he thinks he can win the 2022 Drivers' Championship, we bring you a preview of his home race, reminiscing over fond memories and giving our top 5 predictions. Today I am joined by the usual suspect. It's Joe Roberts. Joe, how are you doing?
I'm doing good, thank you. Sam, how are you?
Yeah, not too bad. And I'm also joined by replacing Josh, who unfortunately is busy with work commitments. We've got the Romanian beast himself. It's Mr. Robert Constantine. Robert, how are you doing?
I'm great. I'm happy to be here again. Thank you for inviting me, Sam.
No worries. We're happy to have you, mate. And I think it's only fair that we kick it off straight away, talking about our thoughts on the track. So what are your guys' favorite parts, or just do you like this track, the Mexico City circuit?
I really like this track. It's a shame that there's a lot of, well, I would say there's a lot of overtaking, but if you're the faster, well, it's like engine specific to what like, because of the altitude and that, it kind of can favor the Honda engine, which could mean it may make could make it a boring race. So yeah, it's a good track, but I think the altitude kind of makes it a bit boring in a way. I know it sounds really random, but yeah.
Yeah, I agree with Joe. I think it is it's a fun track to drive. I think it has all of the elements of a great F1 Grand Prix track, but the altitude and the fact that basically Mercedes are not going to be in this race, it kind of makes the race a bit more boring for us. But we've had some really good races in the past in Mexico, and I definitely think we're going to have a pretty good race this weekend. I'm not expecting any major surprises, especially from Mercedes, but I really want to see some great overtaking, especially into turn 1. We always have some good battles there. Then you have the stadium section, which it's just fantastic. And obviously, since we're going to have fans back, it just looks amazing. And the atmosphere in Mexico is always electric. The fans are always there for Perez, and I think he'll have a great time again. But yeah, I do like the track.
Yeah, I do hope he has a good time again. You guys mentioned the altitude. Specifically, it sits over 2 kilometers above sea level, which is pretty crazy for a racetrack, which for some reason suits the Honda engine, as you said. It's got one of the best views on the F1 calendar as they wind through the Foro Sol baseball stadium towards the end of the track, the last few corners, and it's so satisfying. You have the crowd going mental. The atmosphere is electric, and that is such a satisfying part of the track. And there's a lot of parts of this track that are some of my favorite bits of the calendar, not only the stadium part, but also in 2019 they introduced the awesome elevator podium, where they had after Lewis won, they elevated his car onto the podium with him standing on top, and that was pretty awesome. And I'll talk a bit about that in my fond memories. But yeah, that's another real plus of the track. I'm now going to pass over to future Robert, who's going to do an in-depth analysis of the track using the F1 2021 game.
Welcome to the Scenario 7 guide to the Mexican Grand Prix circuit. This is Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez, and it is quite literally a breathtaking track. With an elevation of over 2.2 kilometers in a really hot climate, this track has proven to be a challenge to both drivers and the cars. The long main straight of this track features the first DRS zone, and it ends in a very technical turn 1, which is no stranger to first lap incidents. Be careful with the exit into the narrow turn 2 and 3 chicane. Early on the throttle in the exit of turn 3, DRS open as we make our run into the second straight until the slow left-hander of turn 4 that marks the beginning of the second sector. Really go wide on the curb to ensure a good line into turn 6 right now. This allows you to pick up some speed that will be crucial in the S's section. Turns 7, 8 and 9 will be a very quick succession of corners. And now take a deep breath and make sure the car is ready to go flat out through turns 10 and 11. DRS open for the last time in this lap as we rush into sector 3. Hard on the brakes now for turn 12, making sure to get as much of the inside curve as possible for a good entry into the hairpin. Early on the throttle at the exit of the hairpin and speeding through turns 14 and 15. Brake hard in 16 and then get ready to put your foot down through the fastest corner of the track, the Peraltada, across the line, and that is a lap of the Mexican Grand Prix.
Thanks for that, Robert. Now we're going to move back to the fond memories, a staple of the podcast, and I'm interested to see what races you guys are going to choose.
Robert, do you want to go or do you want me to?
Yeah, I'll go if you allow me. I really enjoyed the 2017 Mexican Grand Prix. I think the entire race and even the build up to the race was just fantastic, because just 1 month prior to the race, there was the Mexico City earthquake, which was devastating for Mexico. And then the big circus came in October of 2017, and they put on a spectacular show. The fans were there to support Perez. Perez had a great race. He ended up finishing 8th, I think. He had some good overtakes, but it was just fantastic. Turn 1 crash between Vettel and Hamilton, the two drivers that were actually fighting for the title at the time. Both of them had to go to the pits. It just made it really interesting. I think Hamilton ended up finishing 9th, and he ended up winning the title in Mexico. That was just a very emotional moment for him, and the way, you know, everything sort of happened in a race that was packed with that emotion, both from the Mexican fans who were obviously devastated, you know, by the earthquake, and then all of the Hamilton fans who were there at the track, who got to see Lewis, you know, run around after winning his title. It was just fantastic. It was a great race, packed with a lot of great moments, great overtakes, and as I said in the beginning, some drama as well. And I think it'll go down as one of the most emotional Grand Prix, but also one of the most spectacular in the hybrid era.
Yeah, that race was pretty good. I've chosen qualifying. I know it sounds a bit weird, but I chose 2018 the qualifying for that, with Ricciardo qualifying on pole. I think Verstappen was like 0.61. It was extremely close. But Ricciardo usually, well, when you do as well, suddenly has an engine failure, so he DNF'd. But then Max, an absolutely dominant performance. He lapped the field up to 6th twice, and then also Bottas once as well when he was in 5th. So a very dominant performance by Max, which could kind of show what's going to happen this week, but we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, I'm going to take Josh's role of talking about the last race. Last year's race was cancelled, unfortunately, so I'm going back to the 29 Mexican Grand Prix. To be honest, not much happened in that race. In qualifying, Verstappen got pole, Leclerc 2nd, and Vettel 3rd, so a strong qualifying for the Ferraris. And Lewis Hamilton had a great race. After losing places on lap 1, after going on the grass, after contact with Max Verstappen, he ended up winning the race. And I mentioned in one of my favourite bits about the track, he had the podium celebration where he was lifted onto the podium with his car, and how amazing that was. And it's probably my favourite podium ever in F1. And then other bits about the race, Vettel ended up coming 2nd, with Valtteri Bottas coming 3rd. Another thing to note was Danny Kvyat got a 10-second penalty for taking out Hulkenberg on the last lap, which I'm not very happy about. People who know me know I'm a big Hulkenberg fan and think he deserves to be in the sport, but Hulkenberg recovered to get 10th. And then I've got to mention how Perez did, as it's his home Grand Prix, and I'm repping his merchandise. He ended up coming 7th for Racing Point, which is a a good race and his joint best finish in Mexico. So that wraps up our fond memories. Let's move on to what we expect to see this weekend. And these are 5 general thoughts, not too specific, about what we expect to see in either practice, qualifying, or the race.
Well, I think this is going to be a surprise for Sam. I do think the Red Bull both the Red Bulls will finish. I think this is going to say bold. It might go into the predictions of actually where I think people will finish, but I think Perez will get pole. Home race. I think one of the Red Bull and Mercedes, one of them will crash in terms of turn 1 because it's so tight and fast. Because of the reputation, I would say, of Mexico, of people getting lapped, I think the Haas drivers will get lapped 3 times. Classic, 1 out of Josh's technique. And then that's 3. McLaren will do well. I think they'll get some solid points and extend their advantage over Ferrari. And I expect Alpine to do well here as well.
You said we shouldn't go into too much detail, but I think that in one of the qualifying sessions, we'll have a red flag caused by one driver just absolutely smashing into the wall in the last corner. So that's my first prediction. It's happened before. It wouldn't be the first time. And I'm going to say that it's going to be one of the Ferraris that does that. I'm mostly thinking about Leclerc, but we'll see.
Very specific.
Very specific, yes. A second prediction, Red Bull to win. Just simple. Not much else I can say about that. I'm going to say that both of the Haases will DNF in the race. I'm going to go bold. So 2 DNFs for Haas. Then, as Joe said, McLaren could do well. I kind of disagree with the Alpine bit because in the past, the Renault engines really struggled at Mexico. So I'm going to say that at least one of the Alpines will DNF. And then I'm going to have to agree with Joe. Massive crash, turn 1 between Mercedes and Red Bull.
Oh, some interesting predictions there. I'm going to start off with my favorite driver, and that's Sergio Perez. I'm going to be really not very specific at all. I'm going to go Perez to finish above 7th. His best finish in Mexico is 7th, so I think he's going to better it this weekend. And you'll hear in my top 5 where I think he'll finish. My second prediction is the return of the elevator podium. I'm not sure what happened. I just really want it to happen. I've mentioned it in pretty much every segment just because it's awesome and I love it. My third prediction is 3 or more engine penalties to be taken this weekend. And I've got 3 drivers in particular that I'm going to predict, and that is Ocon, Stroll, and Norris. They are the 3 drivers that I think will take engine penalties. I've seen a few rumours saying that they might need to take another one before the end of the season, so I'll be interested to see if they take it here. My 4th one is AlphaTauri double points. I think that Tsunoda's growing into the role more, and I think that him and Gasly are looking like a better duo, and I think next season they might end up doing very well together. And then my 5th prediction, I've donated out to Archie Corbett, who's not on this podcast, but I was having a discussion with him before we started, and he is not having any of this Haas slander, and he thinks that Mazepin is going to get points. So that is the Archie Corbett prediction, and that wraps up my what I expect to see. Now let's get into the specifics of it. Top 5, starting with 5th.
Okay. I kind of agree with you now. Norris will get a penalty, so have to be Ricciardo getting P5. I was going to put Norris. I think it'll be the usual Red Bull and Mercedes in the top 4. Just depends with the order. I think Bottas will get P4. I think Verstappen will be P3. Lewis Hamilton will be P2, and then Sergio Perez will win it at his home Grand Prix.
Please happen. Robert, what do you think?
I'm gonna go for Bottas 5th. I think I will go for Leclerc in 4th, because Ferrari always, do well around Mexico. I'm tempted to say Hamilton 3rd, Perez 2nd, and Verstappen to win it.
I am very happy with these Perez predictions. I'm not going to lie, and I'm going to keep them going. So in 5th, I've got Carlos Sainz. I feel like he's had a great season this year. I think he slightly outperformed Leclerc, bearing in mind Leclerc kind of had a head start, bearing in mind that he had been in the car a few years longer than Sainz. This is his first year, and he's really done well. And I think he might end up finishing above Leclerc. So I've got Sainz in 5th. 4th, I've got Bottas. 3rd, I've got Hamilton. So I think the Mercedes will not be in the same league as Red Bull this weekend. 2nd, I've got Max Verstappen. And in 1st, it has to be Sergio Perez. If he wins his home Grand Prix, I might come on the review crying. I mean, he's also never got a pole before. I think his best is 2nd in Emilia Romagna a few years ago. So Joe predicting pole for Perez is something that I'm all here for. A dominant weekend with him first in qualifying and winning the race would be very lovely. But we'll see what happens. And that wraps up our preview of the Mexico Grand Prix. Thank you for watching and listening. Remember to like, subscribe, download, whatever you need to do. We will bring you a review on Monday, hopefully. It depends. I think it's a late Grand Prix, so it might end up being Tuesday. We'll have to see. But a quick thank you to Robert. Thank you for filling in, mate.
Thank you for having me again.
No worries.
Replacing Josh.
Yeah, you might end up replacing Josh permanently, depending on how busy he is. But yeah, thank you for filling in, mate. And we'll see you for a review on Monday or Tuesday. Thank you, guys.